My fellow Americans, this is Liberation Day. We will establish a minimum baseline tariff of 10%. India, very, very tough, very, very tough. Prime Minister just left. He's a great friend of mine, but I said, you're a friend of mine, but you're not treating us right. China, 67%. That's tariffs charged to the USA. We're going to be charging a discounted reciprocal tariff of 34%. You think of European Union, very friendly. They rip us off. 39%. We're going to charge them 20%.
We're now preparing for further countermeasures to protect our interests and our businesses if negotiations fail.
We're going to fight these tariffs with countermeasures.
The administration's tariffs have no basis in logic, and they go against the basis of our two nations partnership. This is not the act of a friend.
Fear and fury, dilemma and dismay. Countries across the world are coming to grips with Donald Trump's reciprocal tariffs, one that upends decades of America's support to globalization and potentially has the power to disrupt and rearrange global trade. Trump unveiled sweeping reciprocal tariffs. The levies were bigger than expected. Let's quickly take you through the big takeaways. Trump announced what he called discounted reciprocal tariffs during a long, drawn-out speech at the White House lawn. Several countries, including China, Vietnam, EU, India and Japan, stare at tariffs in the range of 20 to 40%. India specifically faces a 27% tariff levy. As per the Trump administration, the rates were calculated as roughly half of what the US claims these countries impose on American exports. Factoring tariffs, non-monetary barriers, among others, India's Commerce Ministry says it is carefully examining the implications from anger and outrage to emergency meetings. Trump's tariffs have evoked a slew of reactions across the world. China calls for Washington to immediately cancel the tariffs, warning that they endanger global economic development. The European Union is preparing a fresh package of countermeasures.
For these reasons, starting tomorrow, the United States will implement reciprocal tariffs on other nations. It's been a long time since we even thought of that. We used to think about it a lot. We didn't think about it for many decades, and you see what's happened. For nations that treat us badly, we will calculate the combined rate of all their tariffs, non-monetary barriers, and other forms of cheating. And because we are being very kind, we're kind people, very kind. But we will charge them approximately half of what they are and have been charging us. So the tariffs will be not a full reciprocal. I could have done that, yes, but it would have been tough for a lot of countries. We didn't want to do that. But such horrendous imbalances have devastated our industrial base and put our national security at risk. I don't blame these other countries at all for this calamity. I blame former presidents and past leaders who weren't doing their job. They let it happen, and they let it happen to an extent that nobody can even believe. That's why, effective at midnight, we will impose a 25% tariff on all foreign-made automobiles.
Jayant Dasgupta, former ambassador to the WTO, and Pankaj, Mohindroo, chairman of the Indian Cellular and Electronics Association, are joining us in the program. Pankaj, Mohindroo, if I can come to you first, what's going to be the impact on the mobile phone industry? India has big ambitions to become a supplier for the world, but is this going to have a negative impact? What's going to be the spillover effect on India?
So fortunately, at the moment, the way they have been rolled out, there's going to be no impact because the two competing nations, which is China and Vietnam, have got a higher tariff, Vietnam at 46% and China at 54%, which is that the 10 of February and March 25, and the 34 on top of that. So because of that, we'll not have an impact. The impact could be in terms of shrinking of demand in the US, which is possible. So that is likely to happen. For other electronics, also the tariff difference is China is at 79% now, and Vietnam is at 46%. These are the other tariff lines, like consumer electronics and air conditioners, etc. So currently, we have this short-term big advantage. And I think the bilateral trade agreement, which is getting hammered out, we are going to make a lot of changes in our tariffs and also other investment climate issues. So I see it very, very positively. I think the other very positive outcome is that India incorporated both government and the industry work together in a very positive way, not screaming about protection and outdated ideas like import substitution, etc. We truly work towards globalizing India and making it a fit and fine and competitive place and the blessed investment climate. So there are
Mr.
many
Mohindroo,
positives which have come
Mr.
out of
Mohindroo, very
this,
quickly, before I go to Mr. Jayant Dasgupta, a question that I'd like to ask you. We've been hearing from several industry associations. Some of them have gone on to say that over the last week or 10 days, there were instances when US companies were either cancelling contracts or seeking discounts on contracts or for future contracts as well. Is this a situation that you are seeing right now? Do you expect a period of uncertainty?
There'll be a small period of, say, 3 to 5 weeks in which there will be some readjustments. But because the overall position is very positive with the two competing nations, so India has a short-term advantage. But we should not feel gleeful about it. I think the path of liberalization, the path of rationalizing tariffs, chipping away at our disabilities, that should be carried on relentlessly. We don't see a threat to our exports, electronic exports at the moment at all. And the opportunity to take them from 10 billion to 70 billion is a reality. Work towards that relentlessly.
All right, let me get in Ambassador Dasgupta. Ambassador Dasgupta, whatever has happened overnight and over the last few weeks, clearly the rules of engagement on global trade, all of that has been thrown up in the air. Whatever Trump is doing, is it all WTO compliant? What options does India have at this stage?
To answer your first question, it is not WTO compliant at all. Because, of course, President Trump has mentioned in passing that there is a national security angle to his raising the tariffs. But that is quite far-fetched, I think. So what he has done is that he has violated two basic principles which bind the WTO together. One is the MFN principle, which says that you have to treat all exporters who are members of the WTO in a similar way. That is, the tariffs for the same product should be same unless there is an FTA. And by having a differential tariff system, for instance, EU is getting 20, India is getting 27, China 34 plus 20. So that is violating the MFN principle. The second thing is that the US has given commitments at the WTO that it would not raise its bound tariffs beyond a certain limit for each tariff line. Now, if you take the average of the bound tariffs of the US, it comes to about 3.8%. And from what he has done, he has violated those obligations which the US had made as a member of the WTO in a very brazen fashion. So these two things, I think, strike at the very root of the WTO. And it is the signal for, I think, some introspection and, emergent action being taken by the other trading partners. Perhaps.
Ambassador Dasgupta, what is India's option at this juncture? We are negotiating a bilateral trade agreement. That has not cut ice with Donald Trump. He still imposed reciprocal tariffs on us. He did not give us a reprieve. What is the best option for India at this juncture if we were to protect and ring-fence ourselves?
Well, if I can venture my personal opinion, I don't think this is sustainable. So, and President Trump also in his heart of hearts would be knowing that it is not sustainable. So this is the opening gambit. He is forcing others to come to the negotiating table. Even the EU, despite making the usual warlike noises, has given an indication that it would be willing to negotiate. China is the only one which has not really mentioned anything, and it has not come to the negotiating table. So the first thing is that we should continue to negotiate. The bilateral trade agreement is proceeding along the right lines. So that is one thing. The second thing is that we should try to have a kind of a dialogue with the European Union, the Japanese, the Australians, all the others who have, the Canadians, for instance, all the others who have been hit by the Trump tariffs, and find out what we can do collectively and what can make the US, climb down and roll back its tariffs. So that is the second aspect of our strategy. And the third one I wanted to mention in the which is a continuation of the first point, is that there are many areas where we can concede ground, which will not really hurt us, our core interests, and we can provide, for instance, the quality control orders. The national trade estimates have also mentioned this. These are certain things which we need to take a very deep look at, non-tariff barriers.
All right. We've completely run out of time, but we'll thank our guests right now, Jayant Dasgupta and also Pankaj Mohindroo, for joining us. We're going to take a short break, but don't go anywhere. When we return, we're going to get you an exclusive interview with Shyam Saran, India's former Foreign Secretary, on how what Trump has actually done with reciprocal tariffs really changes the rules of engagement when it comes to geopolitics and countrywide bilateral relations as well.